Look, I'm about to score. You won't be able to stop me. Don't even try. He was a nightmare for Premier League defenders. His subtle smirk was more frightening than the Joker's laugh. He scored stunning goals, humiliating opponents who couldn't even comprehend what had just happened. A real article. Not being a classic forward, Thierry Henry became a great goal scorer whose skill is unforgettable. You can tear down the stadium, but you can't erase the memories of it. The London Arena of Highbury is long gone, but the memories of the history written there live on. The last golden chapter is inextricably linked to the name Thierry Henry. At Highbury, he became a legend. He uses Ori. He's got a lot of power, Matt, just like that. And what an amazing goal from Thierry Henry. It took him just 8 seasons to confidently top the list of the best goal scorers in Arsenal's history. But the magic was in something else. When it comes to him, no one remembers how many goals he scored. Everyone admires how he did it. Henry's signature smile didn't just scare defenders, it also thrilled fans. It highlighted how effortlessly the Frenchman created masterpieces. And it reminded us that there's no need to be afraid of talent. It's much scarier to lose him. It was in London that Henry got a second chance, shedding the label of a temperamental star who risked wasting his talent. Henry became a star early on. For many great footballers, winning the World Cup is an unfulfilled dream. And for him, it was just the beginning. At 20 years old, he helped France win the home World Cup, finishing the tournament as the team's top scorer. The scale of the achievement hid an unpleasant side of the coin. Despite scoring 3 goals, Henry was given a supporting role. The young forward scored all his goals in the group stage, hitting the net against South Africa and Saudi Arabia. But right at the start of the playoffs, he ended up on the bench, and in the final match, he didn't even step onto the field. Just being on the national team was a bit of a gamble. The French coach Émile Jacquet was torn until the last moment between 2 talents who played in a similar style. Thierry Henry or Nicolas Anelka. Both forwards were graduates of the famous Clairefontaine Football Academy. And that means Henry met 2 criteria. He was a very talented young man and lived in the Paris region. Otherwise, they don't accept you at Clairefontaine. The French capital is home to him. Thierry was born on the outskirts of Paris, but he owes his natural talent to the Caribbean islands. His father is from Guadeloupe and his mother is from Martinique. Both islands are part of France's overseas territories. The boy revealed his football talent at a preschool age. As the years went by, his confidence in his talent grew rapidly, so the rigorous selection process at Clairefontaine wasn't a problem for him. Another matter was studying. Kicking the ball was easier than reading books. Henry faced difficulties with his academic performance, which threatened his football development. The scouts from Monaco came to the rescue. Under their patronage, Thierry successfully completed his course at Clairefontaine and later moved to the French Riviera. There, Henry found a second father. Otherwise, you can't call it Arsenal without Wenger. The specialist played a crucial role in the footballer's career. It was under his guidance that the 17-year-old player made his professional debut. 2 weeks later, Wenger left Monaco, keeping warm memories of his protégé's talents. The coach knew how to utilize Henry's unique abilities, waiting for the next meeting. Even without Wenger, the start turned out to be excellent. After going through a tough period, Monaco returned to the championship race, gradually integrating the wunderkind into the main squad. A season later, Monaco finished first and Thierry played an important role. He participated in 36 matches, earning the title of the best young player in the league. But that wasn't enough to assess his talent. In less than a year, the Frenchman became the most promising player in Europe. The Golden Company provided the opportunity to debut in the Champions League, where Monaco and Henry made a splash. The club reached the semi-finals, and the young forward scored 7 goals, becoming the second top scorer of the tournament. The first bell rang for the birth of a great goal scorer. Thanks to him, Henry received a call to the home Unde. Henry, right? Hey, super goal scorer. When Monaco lost in the semi-finals to Juventus, Henry had no idea that 6 months later, he would be wearing the black and white jersey of the opponents. But it didn't feel like home. It turned into a dark streak. The rapid progress was followed by an exciting downfall. Having soared to the top as a world champion, Thierry found himself in the embrace of the toughest season of his career. Wenger was partly to blame for the crisis. When he became the coach of Arsenal, Arsène made an attempt to bring the talent back under his management. Monaco firmly refused, stripping Henry of his motivation. The young footballer stood his ground and responded to the club with a strike. Monaco didn't hesitate with the temperamental player and put him up for transfer in the middle of the season. Juventus decided to take advantage of the opportunity, not hesitating to spend 12 million euros. In 7 months in Turin, the Frenchman managed to work under the guidance of two great coaches. However, neither Marcello Lippi nor Carlo Ancelotti found a worthy role for him. The player was used deep on the wing, not allowing him to showcase his best qualities near the goal. The issue with his position is cited as the main reason for Henry's failure in Italy. But it's not hard to find another explanation. Juventus was going through a turbulent phase, trading their championship title for 7th place. It was difficult for a young player to blend into a struggling team amid a loss of form. It's quite possible that in the next season, his game could shine in new colors. Wenger understood this better than anyone else, which is why he decided to act proactively. Arsenal bought Henry for 16 million, making it a record purchase at that time. After 7 seasons, there was no doubt about it. This was the most important transfer in the history of the Gunners. In each of them, the Frenchman became the team's top scorer, regularly gracing the football charts with beautiful goals. Thierry made the simple genius. Cutting in from the left flank and shooting into the far corner became the striker's signature move. But his attacking repertoire was much broader. Long shots, solo runs, and set pieces. Henry could surprise opponents in many ways. The biggest surprise was experienced by Fabien Barthez, who was in goal for Manchester United. The Frenchman, a longtime teammate on the national team, didn't immediately understand what had happened. The play was happening well outside the penalty area. Henry was facing away from the goal, but just 2 seconds later, the ball was in the back of the net. The wonderful goal was a symbol of success. For 3 years, Arsenal unsuccessfully fought Manchester United for gold. Only after Henry's arrival did Wenger manage to build a championship team that first finished in first place and then became legendary. When Henry became the attacking leader, becoming the top scorer in the Premier League for the first time, the Gunners reclaimed the title. But the scoring feats were just beginning. Thierry finished as the top scorer 4 times, including in the season that modern Gunners fans consider legendary. The famous unbeaten season allowed Arsenal to don the legendary nickname, the Invincibles. The best of the Invincibles was indeed Henry. He scored 30 goals, which is 40% of all the team's goals. Detective Step 1, Detective Step 2, Detective Step 1, Detective Step 2. This is just amazing. In that unforgettable season, Thierry delivered a standout performance outside of the Premier League. When he left Italy, critics confidently hinted that the forward wasn't ready. To the harsh realities of Catenaccio, the Frenchman returned to prove just how wrong they were. In the away match of the Champions League group stage against Inter, the Gunners needed nothing less than a victory. The defense of the Italian club was made up entirely of masters of defensive play. Zanetti, Materazzi, Cannavaro, Cordoba. In the face of maximum difficulty, Henry showcased the aesthetic side of football humiliation. 2 goals and 2 assists from the Frenchman left no trace of the formidable opponent. A particularly telling moment was with Javier Zanetti. Henry effortlessly dealt with the great captain of Inter, sending the ball into his favorite far corner. During that period, Thierry came very close to winning the Ballon d'Or. In 2003, the award was snatched away by Pavel Nedved, and the following year, the forward fell short due to his national team's lack of success. If France hadn't flopped at Euro 2004, with a high degree of probability, the Ballon d'Or would have ended up in Henry's hands. It's noteworthy that the French team went to that championship as the reigning champions. By the age of 23, Henry had already won all the major trophies with the national team. Just like at the home World Cup, he became the team's top scorer at the triumphant Euro, and his role as a key player was no longer in doubt. That wasn't the last success with the national team. 2 years after the failure in Portugal, France redeemed themselves on the world stage, surprisingly reaching the final. At that time, Henry was also in the running for the Ballon d'Or. But even if the French had become champions, the award would most likely have gone to Zidane. The specifics of awarding the most prestigious individual trophy have many facets. Not every great footballer is lucky with circumstances. Thierry Henry's cards never came together, but it's absolutely certain that he was a player worthy of the Ballon d'Or. Arsenal's last achievement during Wenger's golden period was reaching the Champions League final. The quest for the cup couldn't happen without the leader's heroics. First and foremost, Henry is remembered for the first-round playoff match at Santiago Bernabeu. The Frenchman added another masterpiece to his personal collection. He carried the ball from the center of the field, leaving 4 opponents and the goalkeeper with no chance. The execution of the defenders didn't end there. In stoppage time, the Arsenal captain showed that not only goals can be beautiful. In his performance, even time wasting could turn into an art form. Real Madrid players' attempts to take the ball away and even knock the forward down proved futile. The elusive smirk on his face reflected the helplessness of his opponents. It was impossible to contain such speed. In the 94th minute of the match, the further progress in the tournament allowed Henry to get back at Juventus. He scored in the head-to-head match during the quarter-final stage. However, the story didn't have a perfect ending. In the decisive clash, Arsenal lost to Barcelona, and Thierry missed a couple of good chances. The tragedy of the defeat was compounded by the early red card for the English players. Winning under such conditions was extremely difficult. That evening, the Gunners lost not just the cup. Obsessed with winning, Henry began to feel that Arsenal was no longer matching his ambitions. The player still had the desire to win the Champions League, while the London club was moving in the opposite direction. After a difficult season, half of which Thierry missed due to injuries, he remembered his old passion and made a difficult decision. The Frenchman said that if I leave Arsenal, it will only be for Barcelona. The deal with the Catalans brought titles but took away glory. He finished his debut campaign in Spain as the club's top scorer, but the achievement was dubious. Barca didn't win anything, and the 19 goals figure looked weak for Henry. He scored a lot more at Arsenal. Then came the legendary year of Pep Guardiola, during which the Blaugrana won 6 trophies. Exactly as many as Henry won during his entire time in London. The Frenchman paid a high price for those awards. When remembering the great achievements of Barcelona, no one will mention his name among the first. At Camp Nou, the great forward stopped being the football joker, whose ominous skills were feared by all opponents, and became just a regular member of a strong team. Very quickly, Henry lost even that status, becoming a rotational player. In his farewell season with Barcelona, he started in just 15 league matches. But there was still gunpowder left. The Frenchman ended his career in the style of David Beckham, playing 4 full seasons in the American MLS. Thierry will bring it. Fierce! Henry maintained his joker status only in the national team, revealing the dark side of a man who always sought to win. The final period in the national team was marred by the management of the quirky coach Raymond Domenech. Reaching the World Cup final, the notorious coach, who selected players based on their connections with Diac, received an undeserved vote of confidence. After a disappointing performance at the Continental Championship in 2008, France risked not qualifying for the next World Cup. The fate of the country. In the playoff qualification, Henry had to save the day at the cost of his dignity. The clash with Ireland sensationally went into overtime. In the 103rd minute, the captain of the French team blatantly handled the ball, providing an assist for the goal. While the referee crew was showing why football needs VAR, Henry celebrated the goal with no remorse. The hand of God gave the Irish the middle finger. Of course, Henry acted in an ugly manner by violating sporting principles. But the significance of his wrongdoing was greatly exaggerated. Without that goal, no one guaranteed Ireland's advancement. Nevertheless, karma caught up with the Frenchmen at the World Cup. In South Africa, they experienced another failure with Domenech. Then further on, look, it's 2-0. Diaby makes a mistake, Clusian makes a mistake, and Loris can't help at all in this situation. The farewell to the national team was bittersweet, but Henry left as a legend. Back in 2007, he surpassed Michel Platini, becoming the top scorer in the history of Le Blues. Henry's coaching career has once again brought to mind Domenech. It didn't work out for him. Thierry tried twice to dive into the azure waters. The Mediterranean He started his coaching journey where his star was born, in Monaco. Being a footballer turned out to be easier. In 20 matches, the Monegasques managed to win only 4 times, leading to the legend's resignation. After that, Henry licked his wounds in MLS, managing Montreal, and now he is back as an assistant to Roberto Martinez. The Frenchman learned the basics of coaching in the Belgian national team staff, working as an assistant. Apparently, his managerial ambitions will get another chance. Henry's name continues to be heard, but it is always more difficult to believe in success after failure. Thierry Henry's legacy is easy to describe against the backdrop of the current Premier League stars. Mohamed Salah started scoring for Liverpool from his very first match, managing to win the top scorer title twice, but his average scoring rate is still lower than Henry's. It was Henry who first won the Golden Boot twice, opening the era of consistent scoring in major championships, which was later picked up by Ronaldo and Messi. But the main thing is not how many goals he scored, but how he did it. In the list of the best scorers in the history of the game, Henry holds a special place. You can't mistake his handwriting for anyone else's.
All right, it's a long way.
Oh, that's a cluster. This is still... 1. Extraordinary goal. Winter of 2012 arrived, marking the off-season in MLS. Thierry Henry, kept in shape in London, training with Arsenal. Seeing the forward, Arsenal's Wenger went back in time. There was no doubt. The sides signed a 2-month contract for the duration of the American break. The journalists were puzzled. It's better to remember him as he was. 3 days later, Henry showed what he had become. In the FA Cup, Arsenal hosted Leeds at the Emirates. At the stadium, in front of which stands a statue in his honor. A legend is not a monument, but a person who stepped onto the field in the 68th minute. It took him just 5 touches to change the score on the board. Henry did what he does best and better than anyone else. He opened up on the left side of the box and sent the ball into the far corner. In a burst of joy, the fans were hit by sadness. They used to see that every week,